Now on to Judith Stamper introduces another edition of the regional current affairs programme Close Up North.
Next week sees the end of a long and sometimes acrimonious battle for the independent television franchises. We'll finally know which companies have been chosen to run Channel 3 beyond the turn of the century. Tonight we examine the contest and question the promises of the bidders in the north. And we explore what it's likely to mean for us, the viewers, especially if any of the ITV Big Five, including Yorkshire and Granada, lose out to competitors. For many viewers, the whole contest has become a multi-million-pound game show, offering the star prize of a 10-year licence to run a local ITV station, as well as a chance to take the money and open the box.
It's Open the Box with your host, Tony Schaefer.
Thank you, friends. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Oh, you're too kind. Thank you. Thank you. Right. And welcome to Open the Box, the show that's The Price is Right, The Sale of the Century, and Blind Date all rolled into one. You know, it's cost millions for our contestants to enter, but the stakes are worth a fortune, because tonight's star prize is a 10-year license to run your local ITV television station. Woo, hey! Now, I'll be back in a couple of ticks to ask some tricky-dicky questions. But in the meantime, let's first go to John Monday, who's been casting his eyes over tonight's contestants.
The winners of ITV's own quiz will be decided by executives from the Independent Television Commission, who were presented with sealed envelopes containing the 44 bids for the 16 franchises around the country. They soon realized it was the north of England where the hardest decisions would have to be made. Across the north, there are 15 million viewers served by the current franchise holders. In total, those companies take just under a quarter of the ITV advertising revenue. There are some intriguing contests underway. Battle lines have been drawn across the Pennines, with the Manchester-based Granada and the Leeds-based Yorkshire Television leading groups against each other. Granada is the old campaigner. It went on air in 1956 and is the only station to survive intact. It's one of the so-called Big Five, the companies that supply most of the national programming. Next door is Border, the smallest company within mainland ITV, and one of the 3 franchises that are not being contested. Tyne Tees, with the North East franchise, is the target for a consortium led by Granada and Border. It's called North East Television, and if it's successful, then the Granada and Border empire would stretch from coast to coast. From Leeds, though, the view is very different. Yorkshire is one of the largest areas in ITV, and one of the most profitable. Like Granada, it's one of the Big Five. In February this year, YTV bought a 19% stake in neighbours Tyne Tees. Yorkshire and Tyne Tees have always had close links, and, had rules not prevented it, by now they might have merged. But they have joined forces, linked up with British Television's Enfant Terrible. Enter Phil Redmond, the maker of Brookside and Grange Hill, and one of the most successful independent producers in the country. He's leading the bid for North West Television, which is backed by Yorkshire and Tyne Tees and has its sights set firmly on Granada. Yorkshire itself is under threat from 2 hostile bidders, Viking, which would be based in Leeds, and White Rose, which lists Crime Watch presenter Nick Ross and Olympic swimmer Adrian Morehouse amongst its executives.
Well, you've seen the bidders and you've seen the map. Now, first question. Can you tell me the last time contractors had to compete for their licenses?
In December 1980, the bidding process was much simpler. Companies submitted their applications, were interviewed, and later told if they'd been successful. And franchises have been lost before. In 1968, ABC was told to merge with Reader Fusion to become Thames. Now, Thames itself is under threat from a challenger. In 1986, the Peacock Committee on Broadcasting first suggested auctioning ITV franchises. This free market approach found favour in Mrs. Thatcher's government. And as Home Secretary, it was Douglas Hurd who made it clear that the industry would be opened up to independent producers. It was the Broadcasting Act of 1990 that transferred the ideas into law. Many in the TV industry see the current setup as little short of a gamble. First, competitors have to satisfy what's called a quality threshold. They must prove they can produce a diverse range of attractive, high-quality programming. It's assumed by commentators that the existing broadcasters would pass that test. But as new companies lacking a track record, the challengers will find their applications coming under close scrutiny. The next stage is the examination of the money. The highest bidder will win, unless, says the ITC, there are exceptional circumstances. And it's this clause which has produced the most concern within television. A lower bid could be accepted in this auction. That led one executive to comment dryly that the highest bidder wins unless they lose. The Independent Television Commission says it'll use the clause if it finds a company has a proposed service that is exceptionally high and is also substantially higher than that of the highest bidder. It's the best explanation that the bidders have been given. The auction process won few friends in television or in the city, where analysts have had a field day speculating with sums and scenarios. Neil Blackley, a leading stockbroker, has produced one of the most comprehensive reports on the companies and the bidding. He's unequivocal about the auction.
I think it's pretty stupid. I think that it's politically motivated. It's had the one beneficial effect of forcing companies to be more competitive by slimming down their cost bases, particularly their personnel, so that they can bid more aggressively against new greenfield competition. It is the unions that have been bashed, essentially, in that respect. However, a system that allows one bidder to end up paying something like £2,000 for a license, and another one making a bid of 59.8 million for a region that's smaller in terms of net advertising revenue, it seems to me a little bit stupid.
Well, we're getting in a right old lather here. And talking of that, many of the bidders are offering buckets full of soaps. But, here's a question. Can you name the longest running soap opera on British television?
In homes up and down the country, there's one question that concerns viewers far more than the ins and outs of the bids. What will happen to the street? Television insiders believe Coronation Street alone will ensure that Granada retains its licence. The argument goes like this. If any stations are to lose their licences, then there should be minimal casualties within the Big Five. Thames in London looks less secure than most, and the ITC would be reluctant to cause any more upheaval among the big contributors. The street has ratings of about 13 million viewers and is seen as Granada's ultimate success. But others say if Granada lost, they'd simply continue to make Coronation Street and, like an independent producer, they'd sell it to the network. Or to B-Sky B, the satellite broadcaster, in which it has an 11% stake. Or even the BBC. With a 1990 turnover of £250 million, Granada has spent the last 3 years on a financial diet getting it leaner and fitter for the franchise race. Staff numbers have been reduced by about a third to the current level of 1,100. Its network contributions make Granada one of the most respected contractors in the business. And with award-winning drama and documentaries in its CV, most observers think it'll survive.
It's Granada's bid, promising 745 hours of network programming a year. It includes new drama and new TV films, new comedy shows in conjunction with independents, former BBC newsreader Sue Lawley presenting 2 new religious affairs series, and The Suds Factor shows 2 new soaps, one about a young family living on an executive estate, the other about a community living on the poverty line.
We asked Granada's chairman, David Plowright, to take part in this programme, but he declined. Granada's policy has always been to maintain a silence until the final decision is made. From its application, though, we know the company is stressing its existing presence in the Northwest. Its regional plans include programming totaling 9 hours a week. That's one more than the ITC minimum for the Northwest franchise. Granada points to a purpose-built news base in Liverpool's reclaimed Albert Dock, and studios in Manchester, Chester, Lancaster and Blackburn. It's also keen to expand co-production, particularly in drama. If Granada's ace is Coronation Street, then the company competing for the franchise is also relying on a soap opera. Brookside is a product of Mersey Television, and more accurately, Phil Redmond. Redmond is a former quantity surveyor and scriptwriter on the comedy series Doctor in Charge. And he's the frontman for the consortium led by ITV and Tyne Tees.
It's the Northwest television bid, promising over 356 hours a year to the network. At least 52 one-hour plays using local writers, actors, crews and locations. NWT would expand current affairs into future affairs, predicting trends in a co-production with YTV's First Tuesday team. Along with Brookside, there'd be Willow Mist, a drama serial for the over 50s.
Northwest Television has the most radical regional plans of all the applications. It's pledging, on paper at least, more than 7 times the ITC minimum amount of regional programming. It's been dubbed People's Television and includes a nighttime service which would run for 5.5 hours, 7 nights a week.
After midnight is where the bulk will come, 35 hours out of those 58. We'll run between midnight and 5:30, and actually, I mean, what's on there at the moment is just pure rubbish. I mean, it's actually a dustbin of acquired programming, the kind of stuff that they buy because they want to buy the latest James Bond movie. And our research shows that at 2 o'clock in the morning, something like 50,000 people are watching television. That dwindles to 13,000 by 4 o'clock. That's in the entire Northwest. Twice as many people are actually listening to BBC radio. So to us, we see an exciting opportunity. It's just to say, well, scrap all that old rubbish, and let's just run a live nighttime service with a rolling news that anybody can get involved in. I mean, that's it, really.
Redmond's plan sees a shift in emphasis for television in the Northwest from Manchester to Liverpool. He'd have outlying newsrooms in Manchester, Lancaster, Blackpool, Preston, Bolton, Macclesfield and Chester.
Well, impressive lineups there from the Northwest contestants. But that's only part of the quiz. The next section is the hardest part of the game so far, and it concerns the money. Now, how much can they afford to put into the pot?
None of the companies involved in the northern bids has gone public on the size of the cash offer for the franchises. But there have been leaks, and one of the most respected financial journalists believes he knows the figures.
Well, I think Granada has been heavily outbid by Northwest Television. I believe the Northwest bid is in the region of about 35 million a year, and that Granada has certainly bid less than 20 million, and possibly quite a bit less than 20 million.
Some media specialists believe this blind auction process has led to a few hopefuls submitting bids way beyond their means.
These bids have to be viewed in isolation of the financial backers. The money has to be proved to be there. But after that, you can't say, right, I'm bidding high, we're going to lose money if the advertising forecasts don't materialize that we're forecasting, and therefore our backers will put more money in. You don't have to worry about that. That is not a viable argument, because those backers might go bankrupt, in an extreme example. The management may change, and they may change their minds. Nothing is certain.
The end result could be a disaster for some companies, and more importantly, the real losers could be the viewers. In the race to win the license for the Tyne Tees area, the 2 rival groups are employing the services of 2 former Olympic sportsmen. Brendan Foster, the 10,000-metre bronze medalist from the '76 Olympics, is a board member of North East TV, the consortium which has the backing of Granada and Border. Adrian Metcalf, the 4x400-metre silver medalist from the 64 Games in Tokyo, is the director of programmes at Tyne Tees. From its Newcastle headquarters, Tyne Tees retains 320 staff and boasts that it'll be the biggest employer of TV personnel in the region, a not insignificant claim in the northeast.
It's the Tyne Tees bid, pledging an average of over 100 hours of network programming a year. New drama, including further adaptations of the novels of Catherine Cookson. 4 hours of comedy, developed with the independent sector. 37 hours of entertainment, with emphasis on a younger audience. Plans for a news studio in Sunderland, and further development of regional news with a late evening bulletin called Northern Life Late.
The audience research that we carried out in a great deal of detail over the last few months showed that our viewers had a very strong appetite for news. That was the thing they wanted to see most of, and therefore we felt that was something that we should give them. Secondly, we felt that our transmission schedule and pattern wasn't perhaps as consistent as it could be, and that we had an opportunity at 10:30 to regularly give our viewers a certainty of a programme that would cater for their needs. So the combination of the two things meant that we felt that this was the best approach we could give.
It'll make no difference, but it won't have escaped the notice of North East Television that George Russell, the chairman of the ITC, is a Geordie. And if the Granada Border Consortium can oust Tyne Tees, then Stuart Prebble will be returning to his roots. Prebble is Granada's head of regional programming, who started his career with the BBC in Newcastle. If North East TV win, then Prebble will be in charge as managing director. Like Granada, Stuart Prebble declined our invitation to appear on this programme. With the Newcastle Chronicle and Journal holding a 12.5% share in the group, their application concentrates on news coverage.
It's the North East Television bid, promising to produce 2 Alan Plater plays to offer to the network. Only local news and a Right to Reply programme will be produced in-house. The region will be split in 2, providing services from separate studios in Tyneside and Teesside. York will have its own news office. There's a suds factor of 1, aiming to produce a regional show called North East Enders. Channel 4 has expressed an interest.
But Jimmy Nail, the lead character in BBC's Spender series, should be guaranteed work whichever way the ITC decides. Tyne Tees want him for a UK version of The Odd Couple, and NETV want him for a new drama series called Crocodile Shoes.
I love that series, Spender, anyway. And talking of money, I can tell you that last year, Tyne Tees made a profit of just under £6 million. So, here's the question. How much do you reckon the licence bid would be worth?
Well, I'm pretty sure of the Tyne Tees bid. I believe it to be about 14.5 million, which is really quite a high bid for that region. I'm not precise on the other one, but I believe that they're under 10. I have no doubt whatsoever that Tyne Tees is the highest bidder in that franchise area.
It was May the 15th this year when the bids were submitted to the ITC in London, and coincidentally, a Yorkshire programme was dominating the ratings chart. YTV's dramatisation of The Darling Buds of May had won the hearts of millions around the country. Buds, as it became known in the industry, is one of the cornerstones of YTV's application.
It's the Yorkshire bid, promising 318 hours of network programming a year. Drama, nearly 100 hours worth, plus more buds, and Tales of the Unknown from Arthur C. Clarke. A television version of Monopoly, played by business leaders, and a co-production called Harry Enfield's ABC of Opera. Documentaries, including a new strand called TV Direct, and a programme entitled Pulse of the Nation, to address the great issues of the day. And for Suds fans, there's Tuesdays and Thursdays, following a love affair.
When Managing Director Clive Leach and his colleagues announced their intention of backing Phil Redmond in the attack on Granada, the Manchester station claimed it was tit-for-tat retaliation. Granada had already announced plans to get Tyne Tees.
It forced us to revisit our long-term strategy in relation to the northeast of the country, and clearly we had to consider the possibility of Tyne Tees and our 20% shareholding, if you like, being lost. So in that event, I had to see where there may be the possibility of gaining more terrestrial television elsewhere in the country. It settled very strongly on the northwest region, where the incumbent, we believed, for whatever reason, was not likely to bid very high, and we believe the incumbent was not necessarily winning the regional battle. In fact, I think the BBC over the years have consistently won the audience there. And we know something about the north. So it did fall in the northwest region, but it wasn't a tit-for-tat, just me saying the very next day, let's go for Granada. It was actually saying, let's go for some more television, and which is the best option.
3, 2, 1...
YTV is promising to invest further in its local news coverage and outlines 13 hours of regional broadcasting.
Hello and welcome to Calendar's Lunchtime News. The headlines so far today.
Tonight's first case is strangely unsettling.
The BBC's Nick Ross would be the chief correspondent of White Rose, one of the two groups challenging YTV for the licence. This rural site at Morley, 4 miles from Leeds city centre, would be home to a £20 million production centre. More than half of the White Rose regional and network production would come from the independent sector.
It's the White Rose bid, promising over 217 hours a year to the network. There's a British version of Fame called Starstruck, a series set in the office of a tabloid newspaper, and a run of single plays. Comedy Hour would include work by Alan Ayckbourn, Michael Palin and Alan Bennett, plus the Brian Glover wrestling show. There'd be Kids in Control for Saturday mornings, and a business program called Money at Work, in addition to What's My Beef for lobby groups and companies. And White Rose would have 2 bi-weekly soaps.
White Rose has allocated over £16 million for its regional coverage and would produce its own news service. But the ITC may question the amount of media ownership in White Rose. Yorkshire's main newspaper groups are within the consortium, but there's also Chrysalis, the entertainment conglomerate, which already owns 19% of Metro, the independent radio group which operates within the franchise area. If Viking wins and takes to the air in Yorkshire, it will, literally. It's told the ITC it'll make use of a fully equipped news-gathering helicopter. Viking's been highly critical of the YTV regional magazine Calendar and promises what it calls livelier news.
It's the Viking bid, fully committed to acquiring all network and most regional programs from independent producers, but they would want to supply at least 247 hours to Channel 3. On offer, a major drama documentary and 2 major drama series a year. There'd be Nobbies, a new slant on the world of medicine, and a comedy called Mind How You Go about the police. There'd be a British version of the American news documentary 60 Minutes and analytical programs called Test Case and Internal Affairs. Separate news would be broadcast from Leeds, Sheffield and Lincoln. Later, there may be bases in York and Hull.
So, a 3-way contest in Yorkshire. But now it's crunch time, and you have to put your money where your mouth is. So, how much are they willing to pay?
I'm fairly certain indeed that Yorkshire is bid highest in that region. In the range is about 34 to 35 million. The Vikings and White Roses of this world have kept their bids fairly close to their chest, but I believe that both are under 30 million.
Oh, it's exciting all this, isn't it? All right, just behave yourself, love. Calm down. Have you seen her? There's more to come, love. All right? Okay. Now, there's one company in all this which feels very pleased with itself. Can you name it?
Jim Graham at Carlisle-based Border, these have been relatively peaceful months. Of all the northern bids, only his application has been unopposed. It's thought Border bid less than £1 million, but it was expensive in jobs. Staff numbers will have been halved to 123 by the start of the licence. And the process of predicting the market for TV 2000 was no easy task.
There's a lot of guesswork has to go into it. I mean, we began to do that model a couple of years ago. In that time, the Berlin Wall collapsed, Eastern Europe has thrown off communism, we've had a Gulf War. None of that was forecast, so I'm not able to say what will happen over the next 12 years. But you've got to start somewhere.
There's one group within television which seems set to be a certain winner. There are now about 1,000 independent producers in Britain, and the recent Broadcasting Act ensures that broadcasters must commission at least 25% from independents by 1993. Another of the fundamental changes means that what's shown on Channel 3 will no longer be up to the ITV companies themselves. Instead, a yet-to-be-appointed central scheduler will pick the network programmes. The broadcasters and independents would be able to pitch their offers directly to the scheduler.
At the moment, there's a lot of reason to believe that the systems that are operating within ITV Channel 3 are not really fair. Certainly the Office of Fair Trading has ruled that they're anti-competitive. And of course, we want our sector to grow. We want our sector to grow not as a sector of subcontractors to the broadcasters. We want our companies to be allowed to have assets by retaining rights, and we want our companies to be allowed to make programs with a minimum of arm twisting that goes on in the present system.
Right, now, the next round concerns a quote from one of the giants of TV, who said, "Winning an ITV franchise was just like getting a license to print money."
Lord Thomson of Fleet made that statement when he was head of Scottish television, and his words may yet come back to haunt the industry. As satellite and cable TV expand, so the share of advertising revenue gets smaller for everyone. Channel 5 will get a license in 1994, and the BBC could be asked to take advertising when its Royal Charter comes up for renewal in 1996. European TV companies could yet spoil all the detailed planning the bidders have made. From 1994, Channel 3 companies are open to takeovers, and the hard-won license could simply be bought by a wealthy company. Italian or French stations may yet show an interest in the British broadcasters. Franchise holders can also make bids for each other. The winners could yet end up losers.
It's a very difficult job predicting how the Independent Television Commission will jump, but I would be very surprised indeed if Granada doesn't retain its franchise. Yorkshire are the highest bidders. I can't see any reason why they should not retain their franchise. Time Tees have bid a great deal of money, but I would expect them to survive, and I'd also expect Yorkshire to take them over on the 1st of January next year, or pretty soon after.
So that's the end of the show, folks. Now, normally at this point, we give you the final results, but unfortunately, the judges, the Independent Television Commission, haven't yet made up their minds. We hope to hear from them sometime this month. But from all of us here, it's a very good night to you, and thank you for watching Open the Box. Good night, bye-bye, thank you.